Alright, what is up, everybody? We are back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. Today, I'm going to be talking about 5 second-round picks from yesterday's round 2 of the NBA draft that I think could be steals for the teams that they were selected at. I'm going to talk all about those 5 prospects today. Thank you guys for the views on the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. If you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn notifications, doing all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out a lot. Link to my Twitter and all that stuff down in the description below. And yeah, don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. So the first one we're talking about today is at 31, Rasheer Fleming out of St. Joe's. He goes to the Phoenix Suns. And I really like this pick for the Suns. Rasheer Fleming was a guy that was a potential first-round pick. I had him going to the Hawks at 13. Like, I thought he was going to be, a definite first-round pick. He falls to early in the second round. He gets picked up by Phoenix. He's a big athletic wing. 6'9", 6'10", 7'5" wingspan. A great athleticism. Great defensive, potential. Very long, versatile, does a lot of different things on the defensive side of the ball, and also shot the ball really well last year. Shot 40% from three, in his 1 year. Maybe I guess teams were thinking about, is his 3-point shooting that true or not? Was it just a really high year, or is that actually who he is? So maybe that had concerns that dropped him low to the second round. But I think this is a great pickup from the Phoenix Suns. The Suns, obviously, their defense has not been great over the past few seasons. They're trying to build this new, younger retooling around this team around Devin Booker. They picked up Malawach with their first pick in the round 1, and now getting Rasheer Fleming, another guy that can help with the defense. And you just take a chance because you're like, it's a second round pick. This guy shot 40% from 3 last year. And if we can get something even close to that, in the NBA, I think he could be a really good wing for us and help us in the long run. Having just big wings that can do two-way wings. I feel like that's something the Suns don't really have right now. They have just a lot of guards and a lot of just randomness around their roster. So having a guy that could get it done on both ends, if he really does work out for the Phoenix Suns, I think this could be an amazing move that we look back on and be like, dang, like that was an amazing pick by Phoenix at 31. So I really like Rasheer Fleming. I think he could be a really solid player. And so I really think this is a great pick by Phoenix here. Next one up is at 33, Zion James out of Duke gets picked up by the Charlotte Hornets. I knew he was going to be a second round pick, and I honestly believed wherever he went as a second round pick would have been a great, selection. And the Hornets end up getting him. So he stays close to home at Duke, teams up with Con Kneppel, his teammate at Duke, in Charlotte. Zion James looks like a guy that can make it work in the league. He already played a role at Duke and was really good in his role. Just looks like had a quality role player kind of game written all over him. He defends very well, very aggressive defender. He gets steals. He got good size, even though he's not super, super tall. He has a good frame, and is strong. So he could be a good defender there. On offense, catch and shoot type of guy. Could cut, could play off the ball. He just looks like prototypical kind of backup role player type of traits that he has to him, because he already did it at Duke with a great team where he was surrounded by guys like Cooper Flag and Con Kneppel, Tyrese Proctor at the ball, and he still was, became a starter on this team and really, was a kind of connecting piece with all of them. So I think he's going to go to a Hornets team now that, again, I like what the Hornets have done in this entire draft. Where they've just picked guys that I feel like are just really good basketball players overall. I think they're really going to help this Hornets team take the next step. And I think Zion James is going to play a part of that. Being able to come off the bench, be able to, again, just defend and knock down shots. That's all he really has to do in Charlotte. And I think he can do that wherever team he went to. I feel like he was going to be able to do that. And now with Charlotte, I really like the fit there. I really like him as a prospect. And I think he can carve himself out a pretty nice NBA career. Next, at 37, the Detroit Pistons draft Chaz Lanier out of Tennessee. Lanier was a guy that made it over to Tennessee as a transfer, and he had a great season last year. He can shoot the ball. Wing that can shoot, mid-range jumper, can just fill up the scoreboard. He can get hot quickly and knock down some shots. And I think this could be a solid pick for the Pistons. I mean, he's a guy that's older, could come in and kind of maybe find a role early on for Detroit. Obviously, teams love spacing and, having wings that can shoot the ball. And he also played in a really good defensive Tennessee team where he was holding his own there. So if he could be just a solid two-way, 3-and-D type of wing, where he could shoot the 3 ball, on the offensive end for Detroit and space the floor for Cade Cunningham. On defense, also not be a liability. I think he could work out pretty well. Again, he's an older prospect. He's worked hard. He's been through a lot. Where he came from a small school and then just kept going up until finally getting to Tennessee. And just the season he had last year, he had his best season at Tennessee, where usually guys come from smaller schools and go to a big team like that and kind of get a reduced role. But he went over to Tennessee and got even better. So you have to think that, he works really hard on his game. So I just really like the fit over there in Detroit. And I think he can really come in and find a role for himself. Next, at 38, the Indiana Pacers take Cam Jones out of Marquette. I had Cam Jones going really late in the first round in my mock draft. And I really like this pick for the Pacers. Cam Jones, a guy that played a long time, 3-4 year player at Marquette. His role got increasingly bigger year after year after year. At first, he was more of a 2 guard that could score the ball and stuff, but then he became a point guard in his last season because Tyler Kolek went to the NBA, and he showed that he could handle lead point guard responsibilities as well. He could be a playmaker and run an offense while also still being a scorer. He's just a really solid all around guard and a basketball player, and I think he goes to a really good situation in Indiana, where obviously we know about the Tyrese Halliburton injury, so I think he kind of can carve a role out for himself in Indiana, just being an extra ball handler, come off the bench, while also be able to, score the ball. He's not really going to do too much. I think he just played within the flow of the offense. And I really, really like this pick for Indiana. Getting a guy that, again, is older too, 22, 23, so he can come in right away and find a role early on and doesn't really need too much development, or is not an 18, 19-year-old that's going to spend all the time in the G League, with that point guard vacancy a little bit open, with TJ McConnell being kind of the only guy around there. Cam Jones can come in and he actually can figure out a role for himself, and I wouldn't be too surprised if he becomes a rotational player this season for Indiana, because I think he's really solid. I think he's just a steady, good guard that you could throw out there. You could feel comfortable with him, handling the ball and doing what he's got to do. I really like this pick for Indiana. I think this is a amazing second round get. And the final guy we're talking about today in this draft is one really late, but I think it's a solid pick. At 56, the Warriors get Will Richard from the championship winning Florida. I think this could be a sneaky move that we look back on and be like, dang, what an amazing pick. Kind of like the Warriors the last couple years have really done well in the 50s. 2 years ago, they drafted Trish Jackson Davis from Indiana, like 52, 53, and he became a starter for them. Last year, they drafted Quinn Post in like the 50s, and he is really good for them. And now they take Will Richard. I think he can follow a similar path and become a good player for this Warriors team. He was a guy at Florida that I feel like was a really good connecting piece for this team. I felt like there's a lot of times, especially during the tournament, where things weren't going right for Florida, he made things happen, whether it was getting a steal, whether it was hitting a big shot, getting to the free throw line. Like, I feel like every time Florida kind of needed an energy boost or needed something to happen, Will Richard was the guy that kind of made it happen. Even in that championship game, when Walter Clayton was struggling, he came out and he was the leading scorer for that team, and just made things happen until Clayton got it going. I feel like he just projects as a kind of a prototypical kind of two-way wing, guy that can knock down shots on one end. On defense, he's going to be really aggressive, and I think he could hold his own on that end. And I just feel like he's a typical kind of role player connecting piece. And with the Warriors, especially with how good they've been, I feel like at second round drafting and drafting guys like this, I think I will not be too shocked if Will Richard comes into next season for the Warriors, and by the end of the year, he's like their 9th man in the rotation, getting like 15 minutes a game, because he's just, doing the right things out there on the court. I would not be too shocked about that, because I think he's a really good basketball player, high IQ basketball player as well. And I think the Warriors kind of found something here with Richard. I will not be too shocked if he becomes a rotational player for them at some point down the line. And yeah, it's gonna be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comment section below what your favorite second round picks are, who you think could come out and carve a path for them in the NBA. Let me know down in the comment section. I really like to know, because I think there's some really solid prospects here in this second round. Once again, if you like the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn on notifications, doing all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it a whole lot. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.